Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Bert Dicht. I am the Managing Director of Membership for the National Space Society. And on behalf of my colleague Larry Ahern, Vice President of Chapters, I'd like to welcome you to our town hall this evening, where we are going to preview the ISDC 2024. A really exciting time. Looking forward to that in Los Angeles. And you're going to hear a lot more about that shortly. So again, as I always, I'd like to just welcome you all. This is a town hall. It is our actually it's our second town hall of 2024. So sorry about that. I didn't change that. It's the second one we've had this year. But we're looking forward to a great session. We've got some great speakers tonight. As always, I'd like to do a little bit with virtual etiquette, talk about some things that are happening in NSS, what's coming up in terms of space forums and town halls, and then we'll get right into our program, and then we'll close out for the evening. So in terms of the virtual etiquette, as always, if you have a question, it's best to submit them through the Q&A function. They are there, they're seen by the panelists directly, and also feel free to comment in the chat. And that reminds me, I have to turn on the chat. I will do that. But I ask you everyone to be respectful of the panelists and the audience, because everyone can see all those comments. But we did get quite a few number of questions that were submitted beforehand, and we're going to try to address all of those to really give you an idea of what's going on with the ISDC and what to expect. Okay, so as always, please feel free to give to our cause. We are a volunteer-based organization, and we really appreciate the support of our members and our donors. Please feel free to donate to the NSS. I will put this into the chat so you have that link. And I do want to thank everybody who has donated previously, and thank you in advance for those who are donating tonight or in the future. As always, feel free to complete the post-town hall survey. This will only take a couple of minutes to complete. Once you exit the session, it is completely anonymous, and it absolutely helps us in planning future events. So again, thank you for your comments in advance. So let me talk a little bit about what's happening with NSS. The current issue of Ad Astra, the first one for 2024, was just published. You should have received this in the mail if you are getting the print copy, but it is also now posted on what are called our Your Membership System, or inside.nss.org. So you can access it. Some really interesting articles this month. Unveiling the mysteries of the metal asteroid, the Psyche mission. We've got Space for All of Us, on to Alpha Centauri, Everyone's Gone to the Moon, and much, much more. And we have, of course, our editor-in-chief, Rod Piles, on this evening as well. So if you do have any questions about Ad Astra, you can certainly ask those. But I encourage you to read it. It's a great, great issue and a great, great magazine. I'd also just like to recap March Storm. Remember, we had John Daigle on a few weeks ago, and that was our first town hall talking about the March Storm and what this was. Again, it's the premier space development advocacy event. It was held in Washington, D.C., March 11th to 13th. We had 27 citizen advocates, and they had met with 75 different offices from the House, the Senate, and the Office of Space Commerce. It's always a really interesting experience if you've never done this before. John did a training session for everybody beforehand. And of course, this is done in cooperation with the Alliance for Space Development, which the National Space Society and the Space Frontier Foundation are the founding members of. The big focus this year was on this Commercial Space Act, and the key provisions of that act were extending the learning period on commercial human spaceflight, designating the Department of Defense as the federal authority for licensing commercial activity in space, and finally, a commercial-focused study of the commercial potential of space solar power. So I've heard it was a really successful event. If you'd like to read more about John's report, just go onto the NSS blog, and he posted a very comprehensive report. And we're also going to be posting some things to social media. Oops, what happened there? I didn't mean to do that. Let's get back there. Oops. It's interesting how that happened. Let's go back. There we go. So again, take a look at that. It's a really, really interesting report. Also, some big news. Working with Galactic Medallion, we have settled on a date for the second KSC Cape Canaveral Space Force Station tour. So mark your calendars. We're going to hold this September 20th to September 22nd, 2024. And it was a really great experience the first time around. We did this in January. We've had a number of members asking about when the next one is. We didn't want to do one too fast because it took a lot of prep, and we want to give people a lot more time to plan this, make travel plans, things like that. So look for more details soon, and hopefully we'll see you at the Space Coast here in September. So what's coming up with our space forums? On the 25th, 2 weeks from tonight, this is the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University student team that developed the Eagle Cam. This was a device that was going to be on Intuitive Machines Moonlander. They actually did eventually deploy it, but remember, the intent was to take a picture of the spacecraft as it landed on the moon. These are incredible students. They did an amazing job, and they're actually developing the Eagle Cam for Jared Isaacman for his Polaris mission flight. So you're going to hear a little bit more about that. So it should be a lot of fun. Then on May 9th, we have shuttle launch director Bob Seek, who's going to be talking about what it was like to launch all those space shuttles. And we're working on a great list of presenters and speakers as we go forward. So a lot coming up. The May 9th one will be the last one before the ISDC, and then we'll start again in June. So you'll be hearing more about that. So right now, before I introduce the program, I would like to introduce our CEO, Anita Gale. So Anita, thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see you. And I'm going to turn on the chat here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Bert. And we just had an organizing committee meeting for ISDC earlier this evening. There is going to be some wonderful, amazing programming, some of which you've never seen at an ISDC before, or maybe not any conference. So I'm not going to spend any of your time keeping you away from learning what's happening. And I hope all of you are enthused enough to show up in Los Angeles Memorial Day weekend and attend this amazing program that's been put together for you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anita. Very good. Let me get back to sharing my screen here. Before I go into introduce our speakers this evening, before this session, I was on another, we were on another virtual session with the HAL5, that's the Huntsville, Alabama L5 NSS chapter. And we actually did a joint program with them. They had a speaker from the University of Alabama, Huntsville, talking about artificial gravity, fusion, and breakthrough propulsion technologies. And it was a really interesting presentation. And the reason I bring it up, it was a hybrid because we did it virtually for local members of the chapter, but members were also present in person at a local library where this occurred. And it got the idea of possibly doing this with other chapters, showcasing some of their activities to all of our NSS membership. And so that's something I might be working on as we look at upcoming space forums. It really went well. I mean, they had a good group. They had good technology, a few glitches, which you can expect, but it gave us a thought about maybe trying to do more of these and then opening it up to the entire NSS membership, and it give you an idea of what some of these chapters are doing. So So keep that in mind as we go forward. We'll be working on that. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our topic for the evening. And you know, it's the ISDC, the International Space Development Conference. This one is the 42nd annual conference. I think I've talked about this before, that I went to the very first one in Los Angeles back in 1982. So this one is going to be from May 23rd to 26th at the Sheraton Gateway, Los Angeles. The theme is No Limits. And you're going to hear all about this as we go through the evening. We've got lots of questions to answer, and I'm really pleased to have our guests on this evening. So we have Aggie Kobrin, who is our ISDC 2024 organizer and also director of publications. We have Rod Pyle, who of course is another ISDC 2024 organizer and the editor-in-chief of Ad Astra. And we have Tony Poston, who is the chair of this year's conference. And I know all of these individuals have been working incredibly hard to bring this conference to fruition in just a couple more months. And Tony is also the vice president of marketing as well. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to stop sharing. And let's see, here we go here. So how do you want to do this, everybody? Does someone want to start off, talk a little bit about what the basic theme is, and then we can start answering some questions?
Well, I guess I can kick this off. I don't think Aggie's on right now. I think she
She's on,
dropped
but
off.
she's muted.
Okay.
All right, good.
No,
So
actually, I am here. Sorry,
Okay,
I've just,
Great, Aggie.
great.
Okay.
All right, thanks,
I'm here.
Aggie. So, as the chair for this year, I've been amazed at how things have been changing within the space sector for quite some time. And, I've always been a big advocate and a big believer that pretty much everything today we take for granted from a technological perspective was at some point in the past imagined by somebody in science fiction as something that could be maybe in the future, but wasn't at that time. Which kind of brings to mind the whole concept of our theme this year, which is no limits. And the reason why it is no limits, because limitations are usually those things that are self-imposed upon ourselves as what we think we can't do or what we believe we can't do. And yet what we've seen time and time again, and again, I go back to science fiction because you go back and watch the original Star Trek series back in the 60s, it was a very futuristic view of the world at that time. And modern technologies that did not exist at that time, but then shortly, most of which came to fruition shortly thereafter. Because even though it was at that time deemed impossible for that kind of stuff to happen, people saw the show and they thought, wow, I can do that. And they removed all the limitations and they created those technologies and made them part of our everyday life. So I do believe as we go forward to the next phase of human space development and humans living in space and working in space, I think we're going to see a lot of new things coming around the bend that were just imagined as something in the past that's just now coming to fruition. And it's going to be an exciting time. And I do think that we need to look at the future as one less of limitation and one of open opportunity. So the theme was established as no limits this year, to just think about the fact that there really aren't any limitations other than those that we put on our own selves. So as chair, I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this, to kind of take the lead on this conference with a whole lot of help, and some of that help is on this call right now, or on this show right now. So Aggie, I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit. You can talk about the conference in general as well.
I'm going to pass it for Rod for a moment. I just got my computer working. 2 minutes, we'll be back on.
Okay, Aggie.
Rod.
That's our Aggie Kobrin on the road, reporting from Colorado. So one thing I think is worth talking about, both Ad Astra and the National Space Society have space settlement as kind of the tentpole issue. There are others, but that's the big sort of central theme. And occasionally, not often, but occasionally I'll get a question, why isn't there more big space settlement at Ad Astra? And the answer is, it's not something that advances very quickly, but the technologies and capabilities that are going to get us there are advancing very quickly, faster than Tony and I are both old fudders. And we've been watching human spaceflight for a long time, and it got very quiet for a number of decades. The shuttle was doing good work, We got the space station up there, and that's great. But in terms of moving beyond Earth orbit and getting the kind of things going that I think the NSS really values, for a lot of us, it looked like it has slowed down a bit. That's no longer the case. So what we do concentrate on often in the magazine, and I think what's really driving a lot of the good stuff that's going to be at ISDC this year, are these increments that are going to get us there. So whether it's cost to orbit for delivery of hardware, or ISRU manufacturing on the moon and asteroid mining eventually, life support, there's 100 things that make up what we have to learn how to do up there. And a whole lot of them are going to be in this program. Plus, of course, we have some headliners. I'm going to cheat and look over at the website here. We have Jose Hernandez, who some of you may know from the film A Million Miles Away, which if you watch that whole thing without getting a little teary-eyed at least one point, then you don't have a heart, because it was a heck of a film. And he's a really inspiring guy. We've had him on the This Week in Space podcast, and he's really credible. We have Rob Manning, who's the chief engineer of JPL, not the chief engineer of some project, but the chief engineer of the whole lab. He was also the chief engineer on all the Mars rovers from Pathfinder forward. So he's going to be there speaking, I think, in three different sessions. We have Max Hout, I hope I pronounced that right, who's the CEO of Vast Space, which many of you know about. Jordan Noon from Embedded Ventures, but he was with Relativity Space before that, one of the founders. Susan Kilrain came to us by virtue of Tony, who's a former NASA astronaut, and she's another one of those people that has
she's one of only 3 women to pilot the space shuttle.
There we go.
With the
That's
youngest.
what I was looking for. Youngest. That was the one I was remembering for the press release.
And a former Tomcat pilot.
And a former Navy
Yes.
Tomcat pilot, yes.
And of course, Alan Stern. Everybody knows Alan Stern from New Horizons. And the NSS had we think, pivotal role in rescuing that project from wasn't going to be outright canceled this year, is going to be repurposed for heliophysics. And that's a lot of money to have drifting out in the Kuiper Belt and not using. So that and dozens of others. And of course, hosted by Melissa Navia, who Tony brought in from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And she's going to help us in that crossover that you're trying to accomplish of the gateway drug of science fiction for the true believers of the human settlement of space.
Yeah, we're excited about having a host this year. This is the first time that I'm aware of that the ISDC's ever had a host. There will be a kind of a continuity aspect to the event where, she will bring a different element to kind of introducing things at the beginning of meals and closing things out. And she'll be doing interviews of people on the street. She'll be part of some panels. She'll be part of some student work, that kind of thing. She'll be very, very engaged throughout and she'll also do some signatures and some signing. Just to be aware, just so you're aware of this, there will be some tables, and there will be a setup table where Melissa will have some scheduled signing times if people would like to get, an autograph of a Star Trek, celebrity. Susan Kilrain will have books to sign for her new children's book that was just released. We'll have a lot of things available for people to interact with these people with, not just listen to them speak. And there'll be lots of opportunities for that as well. The whole science fiction thing. Now, again, I'm going to go off on a little bit different tangent here. This is also the track that I'm kind of overseeing, and we're excited about this track because it's gonna be a little bit different, than the last time we ran this track a couple of years ago. And it's going to be basically 2 panels. The one panel I'm going to be moderating is going to include a whole bunch of Hollywood production people who have done a lot in science fiction. Howard Berger is coming. Howard has won Oscars for his work in makeup and visual effects. He did all the aliens for the show The Orville. I'm sure many of you have watched The Orville. But they also did like a variety of sci-fi shows and The Walking Dead, etc. So he's a very talented effects creator, and his firm K&B Visual Effects in Hollywood has won, like I said, tons of awards in about 1,000 films. Greg Russell will be part of that track with me. Again, Greg has been nominated for like 20 Oscars. He's done the sound mixing and design for, again, 1,000 films. He's done a ton of science fiction films like the Terminator series. I mean, not Terminator, the Transformer series. He's done some Star Trek movies, etc. A very, very talented man who basically knows exactly how to target and reach audiences through the art of sound, because without, you can listen to a movie and not see it and engage with it, but it's kind of hard to watch a movie without any sound. Sound brings the actual effect of the movie to life, and actually helps you connect with it. Sound is very key. I have the production designer for the series Picard coming. Her name is it's kind of hard to pronounce, but it's Liz Klokowski, I believe is how you pronounce it. But she's the production designer for the Star Trek Picard series, all 3 seasons that came out, and she will talk from a production standpoint. And I'm hoping to have a pretty famous director coming as well that will also participate. And basically the slant of this panel is how do we bring this stuff to life, this imagination to life, where it engages people and can inspire people to do what I said before. That is to, see a different kind of future that maybe somebody can envision a way to bring to fruition in our lives, in our world today. Because, the whole concept of space exploration and space settlement and space travel and so on and so forth, again, back in the 40s and 50s was just a comic book thing, and now we're living it. And so I do believe very strongly in the concept of imagination when it comes to what we do in reality when it comes to space. So that's, and the other half of our panel will be another panel, and another half of the track will be another panel with other famous people that is still being formed as we speak. So again, we have a lot of great content coming to ISDC. Great meal speakers, and of course we've all heard that our good old friend William Shatner himself will be arriving to receive the Highland Award. So it'll be a great event. I'm looking forward to it.
And so am I.
Oh, go ahead, Aggie.
Aggie's there. How about that?
I'm here. I'm the connection
Okay.
here. I am in the mountains in Colorado, guys, so that's why it's a little tougher. But I wanted to go through the tracks as well. I think Rod did a pretty good explanation of the keynotes there, and we will have William Shatner there for a limited amount of time. We've got some excellent speakers at lunches and dinners, and then we've got all kinds of tracks and other sessions. And just to name a few of those tracks, investments, living in space, many roads to space, the Mars and Moon, of course, planetary defense, which is a huge thing right now, space elevator, space health, space law and policy, space settlement, space solar power. It's starting out with a 2.5-day space solar power session that's going to start Wednesday afternoon, go all day Thursday, Friday, and these other sessions are dispersed through the next 4 days. We have receptions every evening. We have lunches and dinners with keynote speakers. Those are separate tickets. So when you get your ticket to ISDC, it covers the 4 full days. If you do want to go to the meals, those are additional, and they're well worth going to. We are expecting something in the neighborhood of about 1,000 people, hopefully more. LA, sometimes we get more, and several hundred of those are students, and we have a completely independent student track with some of the same speakers speaking to the students, which is just so, it's just instrumental for their future, and such influential people. And then others that are just very much focused on students and, kind of decision making. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? I'm actually up in Colorado because I'm at Space Symposium. So it was really interesting listening to some of what was going on there and how they think about students and STEM and STEAM. So very excited about.
And there she goes. So as far as
No,
we
I'm
know,
still here. I
Aggie
just
will
don't want
be
the noise from
appearing
behind me.
in person
Oh.
at ISDC, but we're not absolutely
I
certain.
will be appearing in person, yes.
Oh, okay. Can I add something about Pascal, or are you done, Aggie? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
of course. Go right ahead. I'm done for now.
So some of you may know Pascal E is a longtime member of the National Space Society. He's a planetary scientist who's worked up at NASA Ames. He built and runs the largest Arctic Mars simulation base in cooperation with NASA up on Devon Island. And recently discovered the first major geological feature on Mars that's been found since 1971 when Mariner 9 went into orbit. So Mariner 9, of course, was the first of the robotic probes to orbit Mars and photograph the surface. And it arrived during a huge dust storm. Once that cleared, we saw these 3 spots begin to poke through and realized there were these massive volcanoes on Mars. So there was 4 large ones, 3 on the Tharsis Bulge and then Olympus Mons. And for decades, that was it. But Pascal was doing some work on a glacier that he had spotted down near the equator. It's a relic glacier. It's not, as far as we know, still active, but not sure. And one day was looking at these photographs and realized that thing's right on the edge of a caldera. So he's discovered the fourth enormous volcano on Mars, about the size of Everest, covers an area about the size of Wisconsin. And I bring this up because that's going to be one of the tentpole presentations during the Mars track, along with a variety of other really fascinating speakers. But this is going to be his first live in-person discussion of this find, and I think that's pretty exciting.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I will also chime in too real quick here. You talk about certain speakers. We just had an event here in Des Moines where Susan Kilrain spoke, and I got to tell you, that event had a lot of people who watched it on the live stream. Tens of thousands of people watched it, and I've gotten more emails from people about her presentation and how they thought it was one of the best presentations we had out of all. We had speakers all day long. And people were really excited about what she had to say. She has a great presentation, and it's very engaging. And even though she's a former Navy fighter pilot and flew on 2 shuttle missions as pilot, she really does have a great story, because she calls herself the unlikely astronaut, or an unlikely astronaut, and because how she got there is a bit of a story in and of itself, similar to Jose Hernandez's story, how he came from as a migrant worker to becoming an astronaut. Hers is a very similar story, but her background is she had some difficulties, and how she got to that point is amazing. I think she will inspire especially young people, because she'll be speaking to students as well with her story. But again, I mean, my mother, who's 88 years old, sent me a text right after she was done and said how basically she almost cried and how emotional she felt after hearing her speak. So, and my mom's not into space at all. So it will be a great keynote she'll give at lunch on, I think it's on Friday during the event.
Aggie or Rod or Tony, you want to just talk a little bit more about what's going on with William Shatner?
Well, I think we need to punt that one to Aggie, because she's the one that's been coordinating them. Are you still with us?
Yeah, I am with you. I just want you to know that he is not going to be there for a long talk. I want everybody, he's going to show up. He's getting the Heinlein Award, which is very exciting, and he's very excited about it. At this point in his life, I don't think he wants to do long talks. So he's going to arrive and he's going to spend a little bit of time talking to folks, thanking everybody, and then depart. So
Okay.
just everybody be aware of that. Yeah. And we're excited to have him there. We're excited to have him there, even.
Should be a lot of fun. Yes, it should be really exciting. So yeah, as long as people understand that. So you probably wouldn't be staying for dinner then, right?
He's not staying for dinner, and he's not doing a signing or anything. It's really a
Right.
come receive. He did say he'd say a few words, but then
Right.
he's gonna
Yes,
go.
it-
The
it's
man's
kind of
93.
it's kind of the rock star thing. He'll roll in and roll out.
Right.
Well, rock
Yeah,
stars do it because they're rock
definitely
stars.
a rock.
Let
Sorry,
me-
definitely a rock star thing. And we've got a few other people coming in like that too. So, we're excited to have them there. And if it's for half an hour, that's great.
Absolutely. No, you've got some other great presenters. Let me just ask an organization or a planning question about this. And Tony, you might start because you're the chair. When obviously you took over after last year's ISDC and you have a whole year to start planning. How do all the tracks, how do all the ideas come together in terms of what you want to present? And then how do you find, presenters for each of these topic areas?
Well, I again, so to be perfectly transparent here, I had my event, Celebrate Innovation Live, that was last week. It was a month and a half basically, or whatever, before ISDC, and which I was also chairing. So both of my events had similar themes, because I'm a big believer in what I said before. And so again, my background is in psychology, so I'm all about the limitations that as human beings we place upon ourselves. Most of what limits us is self-imposed. It is not because somebody's told you can't do it. It's because we told ourselves we can't do it. And so I think in the world of space, Elon Musk is doing what Elon Musk does because he does not believe in limitations. And I think is big in his mantra that, for him, anything's possible, anything is capable. And I think we need to share that message with more and more people, especially young people who are frustrated today. I work in the college world right now. I do a lot of college students who are frustrated. They don't have a real future plan going forward. They don't know what they're going to do, or maybe when they grow up still. It's just a time where they're just not certain anymore about where they go, but they are interested in things. And if we can show them a future where there is no limitation, they can do whatever they want as long as they want to put their heart and soul into it. I think that will help us long term. So that's where the theme came from. The speakers, I knew that I wanted to do something different this year. I've always had a host at my event, and it's always been one of those things where people have always commented. It was very nice to have a host because it tied everything together. It wasn't a bunch of fragmented stuff. It was something that unified everything we did into one centralized kind of a concept or identity. And we need more diversity in ISDC, no question about it. We've been talking about this for years and years and years. And I think Melissa Navia, she will bring that to us and help us, kind of put her front and center. And she's a space fanatic too. While she plays the helmsman she's the Sulu basically on the Enterprise for Strange New Worlds. She in real life is a space nut, and she loves space, and she's all about it, and she's excited to do this, which I think will be good for us, and it'll also help us connect with a new audience. I think that really hasn't connected with us in the past. Young people, sometimes need a channel by which to connect. I think she can be that channel. So it was important to have a host, I think, this year, and it's important to have a woman of color as the host for this. So we checked that box, which is important for us going forward. And as far as content boxes we checked, some of these tracks we've had for years, and that's fine because there's still hot topics. There's still things we need to talk about. There's still things we need to chat about and continually to press down those roads. We have some newer tracks this year. And so I think it's good every ISDC to have new content and new tracks to keep it fresh and for audiences who come every year. We do have those that come every year. We, of course, we don't want them to hear the same basic message every year. We want them to do stuff. So we have diversity of content as well, all across the board, and there's something for everybody. So I mean, if you can't find a topic, in fact, I have a good friend of mine here in Des Moines that is coming to his first ISDC ever, because he's also kind of a bit of a space nut. That's not what he does for a living, but not even remotely close. But he's coming because he's excited about space, and he thinks our program sounds fantastic. So again, if we can keep doing that, I think we'll get a bigger audience and grow over time from that perspective.
Sounds good. You kind of answered one of the questions that was submitted about some of the space conferences show the same content all the time, and you're saying you're trying to bring in new ideas and new approaches here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all know what the NSS is all about. I mean, most of us on this call know what the NSS is all about. And, if you keep saying the same things year after year after year after year, it gets a little stale, and people start to check out, especially in a world where people are used to consuming information in 1-minute videos. What's why TikTok is so big. And short videos and short bits of content and short pieces, and they read their news by looking at headlines. They don't read the story; they just read the headline. And I think as an organization, we need to adapt towards that, and we need to provide a little bit of entertainment value. I don't think there's anything wrong with combining some entertainment with the hard science of space, because it makes it a little more exciting. I would much rather hear somebody who's got a connection to something that we can engage with from an imagination standpoint, maybe a great celebrity or something who also could talk about space. I mean, that's always a win-win. We know that Brian May, who's the lead guitarist for Queen, people listen to him not talk about space because while he can, because he has his PhD in astrophysics, he also is a lead guitarist of Queen, and there's that entertainment connection there, and people just are drawn to that. And if we can do more and more of that, we'll draw a new audience and a bigger audience, I think, over time.
Okay,
and
but
I also want to mention.
I want to add something to that, which is,
go ahead.
While it's fine to be moving ahead and getting new things, we're not leaving people that have more traditional interests in mind behind. So while some of the track names or session names may look similar to the past, the material is not. It's a small team of 3 people doing 90% of the guest getting for these things. And, you know, we do it by going to our friends in the industry and saying, hey, will you come back again this year? And how many friends do you have? But we've got a lot of people coming down from JPL because it's local, a number of people coming from other NASA field centers, number of universities, some from the entertainment sector. We've got a question here about the SAM simulator over at Biosphere 2. We have, I think, Aggie, we have Trent Tresh coming in, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
that'll be addressed. So, you know, it's the new spin on old topics and updated topics, but you know, these are things, as I said, that are advancing slowly, but they're all part of the big settlement discussion, and I think we've filled the channels pretty well.
And I also want to mention that we've got well over 100 speakers. So although we've got, you know, 8 or 10 keynotes, we'll call them, and a couple dozen others that are at kind of that level, we've got well over 100 speakers coming to this. So every topic is being covered, and with the newest information, newest updates. So even if it's Moon and Mars, it's what's happening now. It's not what happened last year or 5 years ago. It's very, very current what they're talking about.
You know, and there is a question on here that I think this is important because about networking and collaboration among attendees. You know, one of the things I think that's very important about ISDC is that it is while it's a formal conference, there's a lot of informality to it, where people can just wander the halls. They can, you know, they can spark up conversations. You know, they can talk about a common topic they want to talk about. And I really think it's also something unique about this too, is that while some of our speakers are going to do the rock star thing, they're going to roll in and roll out. Many of them will not. Many of them will hang out. Many of them will sit there and interact with people. They'll talk with people. They'll take selfies with people. They'll sign things for people. And I think that's important because, you know, when you have a personal experience with somebody, it adds a certain degree of importance to that versus just watching them on television, so to speak. So it's kind of like that concert you go to. When you go to the concert, but you know, for a brand new, say, music group, you now have an intimate interaction with them in real life versus just watching it on television, which won't give you that. So I think it's very important.
I have heard very specific comments from some of the students that have been there, that this is something that changed their lives, being able to sit and talk to an astronaut, being able to sit and talk to somebody who works at JPL. Not just for the students, but I think it has a particular impact on the students. That I think is really, really important. And I don't see a lot of other conferences doing that. I go to a lot of space conferences. I run several space conferences, and we are the most engaged in getting student participation, having a program for them, getting them excited about this whole industry.
You know, as a side note to this, to give an example, what Eggies is talking about with the students. So again, I just had Susan, I just had Alan Stern at my event, and there was a big signing room in a big room where they can all get selfies taken with the speakers. They were on one side. On the other side, I had Brent Spiner, who played Data on Star Trek, and I had Jonathan Frakes, who plays Commander Riker. And the line for them, but by the young people, was about 5 times longer than the line for the real astronaut and the real planetary scientist who just happened to go to space himself recently on a Virgin Galactic flight. So it just shows you the importance that the imaginary world has, you know, to connect people to the real world. So what happened was, as I was observing that, they would get all their pictures taken with Spiner and Frakes and get all excited, but then they popped across and had a conversation with the real astronaut because you know that's real. But they were first in line for the fake astronauts, basically, which that's kind of indicative of the world we live in today, which is why it's important to have that element at least added to ISDC somehow.
I see a lot of questions coming in, Bert. Do we want to go to some of those?
Yeah, we can do that, but I want to just address that engagement aspect because, again, I've been to many ISDCs, and even starting at the first one back in 1982, I was just impressed with how engaging the speakers are, how willing they are to talk to you and, you know, take a picture or sign something. It really is amazing. And it's happened every ISDC I've ever been to. You know, it's amazing when we had Jeff Bezos there. He was incredible, just talking to people, shaking hands and getting pictures. So if you've never been to an ISDC, it's a unique experience in that respect. With you'll be getting up close, you can talk to them. They're so nice about things. So definitely encourage that.
It's a,
Hey,
it's a very,
Eggy, there were some questions that, that we saw in here about transportation to and from the airport,
Right.
about the cost
Yeah,
of
some
meals
logistical
and
questions. Yep.
yeah,
yes,
and
yeah, let me
can
run
you talk
through
about some of
those.
that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The hotel has a shuttle. It's 24 hours that runs from the airport. It's 5 minutes away, literally. It's the second hotel away from the airport. So LAX is very easy, very busy, but very easy. And there's a shuttle ongoing all the time, free shuttle. When you get there, we're taking over everything. So you're not going to have interference from other events there. You're not going to have difficulty finding us. We are taking over all of their meeting space. They're very generous with us. We have all their ballrooms. We have their smaller meeting space. We have pretty much everything. So again, it's very simple. It is a very hands-on, very friendly event. And Bert mentioned, some of the lead people that have been there over the years have just been incredible with their generosity speaking to the students. We have many this year. Many of our keynotes are actually doing sessions with the students as well. So we have them do a separate session that adults are welcome to go to, but they're really focused on students. And that makes it simple too. Registration's on the first floor. You can't miss us. And everything just flows really, really well. There were a couple of questions here about recordings. There is a company coming in. They've worked with us before that will be doing recordings of not just the keynote sessions, but also the tracks. So you'll be able to purchase that if you want to afterwards, and they sell it separately. And there's a lot of different activities going on, not just what you're seeing, or what we're talking about right now, but luncheons and receptions and dinners and talks. And it's just
Concert.
constant 4 days worth of activities,
There's a
authors,
concert.
signings.
Aggie,
Concert.
There's a concert Saturday night. There's an auction on Saturday where we will have some really unique items that you will be able to purchase. We have an art fair going on where there are going to be about 10 artists that specialize in space art and some photography. And that'll be going on. That'll be going on the entire time. The auction will be going on for about a day or so. That's pretty much on Saturday.
And there'll be a bunch of vendors scattered throughout the property so people can
Yeah, there's
engage
about
with
30
those.
vendors, which is a lot for
Wow,
our
that's
shows.
great.
There's about 30
Yes.
vendors. Yeah.
Aggie,
So
how about
Aggie-
any movement on an activity on Wednesday, a possible tour? I know we've been asked that a number of times.
Yes. There's two things. There's a space tourism conference that is actually going to be going on Wednesday, and we have some overlap with them. Some of their attendees are coming to ISDC, and some of our attendees are going to the space tourism conference. It is separate, but it's very similar. And then the exhibitors, there are some that'll be at both. And there's also going to be two tours we're thinking about right now. One is to Griffith Observatory, and Rod is wonderfully helping us plan that one out. And the other one is not quite planned yet, but maybe to a couple of different museums, science center, space museums in the LA area. So we're just working on those and should have that finalized in the next week or 10 days, but there will probably be two tours on the Wednesday.
Great. One other question that was asked about the meals, about if you can sit in on any of the meals after the meal's over to listen to the presenters. Is that possible?
Yes. What we've done in the past, we started doing it with students coming in, and then we realized there were also adults who were not coming to the meals. So we usually set up, it's not going to be a huge number of chairs, maybe 50 chairs at the back of the room, and about 45 minutes or an hour after the dinner starts. So most everybody's done with their dinner. We open the doors and others can come in to hear the speaker. We don't want anybody to not hear the speakers because they're not coming to the lunches or the dinners. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to hear them because they're terrific. And, we just invite them in as soon as the meal is pretty much done before this. It's not just the speakers, it's also all sorts of awards being given out at the dinners. It's all sorts of other things happening at the dinner. So we want to make sure that anybody who wants to see it can see it.
And there was also a question about, will there be streaming or a virtual option?
No, we opt not to do that. This is an in-person conference. As mentioned, there is a company that's coming out and they will be, I'm not going to say it's phenomenally done. They set up a camera at the back of the track rooms. It's a little bit more in the main hall. On the track rooms, it's a camera set up at the back. So they will sell that. We don't sell that. They do it. They give us copies of it and then they sell that. So anybody who can't make it to the conference can actually buy a set of basically everything that's at the conference.
So the video is pretty basic, but the audio is solid. So it's documentation.
Yes.
There's also a question here about Space Force. Did we ever hear back from the PAO over there?
We did, and we have somebody coming from Space Force, our Saturday night speaker, and it's a female, I'm happy to say. It's a senior level person from Space Force. I don't have her name right in front of me right now. We got confirmation yesterday.
Great, thank you.
Great. Yep.
It will be on the website shortly. All of these things are on the website, and we're catching up on the website every day because there's new information every day. You can imagine with over 100 and 150 speakers, how many headshots and bios and everything else need to be put up on the website. We did get confirmation yesterday. Michael's just getting her photo and bio to put up on the website.
Let me get the last couple of questions in that were talked about that individual participation. Someone would like to present a space art poster on a wall or a board without selling anything. Is that possible?
It is. The best thing to do is get in touch with me either by email or phone. I've made arrangements with somebody else to do something like that as well. So we can talk about that. And the best way is really to call me on my cell number, and I'd be happy to share that.
Great.
I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. And another question is, person would like to be a volunteer at the conference. What would they need to do?
There is a sign up on the website. The best thing to do is go to the website and sign up under volunteer. And we have a volunteer coordinator who's then assigning, so they can say whether they want to volunteer for the entire conference or just one day. And the question came up about one day admission as well. And yes, you can come for one day, and there is a one-day admission charge, and all of that's up on the website. So ISDC
Great.
2024.nss.org, and all of that's up there.
There is a question that was in the Q&A from Wes. He did a speech at ISDC 2022 on the framework for off-planet resource utilization. Said much has evolved since then, but this year his abstract was rejected. Can he find out whether he can be an alternate in case someone doesn't show up? Is that a possibility?
Sure. Actually, I'm looking for where it's different on my screen here.
It's in the
don't think
Q&A.
I put
It's in the Q&A, not the
It
chat.
is in the Q&A. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
put my phone number in the Q&A, and anybody who's got specific questions like that, just feel free to text me or call me. It's my cell number. And we can talk about that. And I'd like to hear more about what your topic was, and see if it can fit in somewhere else, because there's still some space and many roads to space and a few things like that.
Great. And I see a question from Carl, who's has no shortage of questions.
Yeah, I saw that.
What is that? Yeah. Which one are you going to pick?
Well, of course, I'm going to go to the giveaways. Will there be any pertinent giveaways?
Giveaways like what?
Well, I think he wants to know if we have stuff, if we have free
Okay.
swag. So there is the auction, and this year something special happened. We got a bit of an airdrop from Pat Rawlings, who I mentioned earlier, who's a very prominent space artist from the 80s forward. One of the most revered, actually. He's kind of the Chesley Bonestell of our time. So we'll have some signed prints there, but those are on auction for bid. In terms of freebies, Aggie, I mean, there's the little swag bag we usually give out, but that's primarily printed materials, I think, right?
Yeah, we'll have a bag, and there will be some printed materials in there. I don't know if we've got any, I think I know what you mean, the kinds of freebies that sometimes we get donated and we put into the bags. I haven't heard of anything yet, but oftentimes those come in very, very late. Like somebody comes to us a few weeks before. So it's still quite possible we'll have some things. And we may actually have some things left over from years gone by. We'll have to check in our storage. Last time we found some things in there that were extras from previous years. So we will take a look.
Hey,
Hey,
Tony,
Bert,
we could
Bert,
give away
can you
some
bring-
of our
Yeah, we can bring
medal
those.
list.
Oh yeah, we can definitely have our NSS stickers. Absolutely. Yep.
I have one
I need to
probably
order a
displayed.
bunch
I have one probably displayed in the back of my vehicle. So
Yeah.
these were designed to
Wow.
be on cars and last a long time. So
Do we have enough
Stop
to
the
put into
presses.
the bags,
Oh,
Tony?
we need to order some, so let's do that.
Okay.
I can definitely order more. Yes.
Yes, but let's give those out. They're great. Absolutely.
Oh, and can I mention one other thing? The new
Sure, go
issue
ahead,
of Ad
Aggie.
Astra, we will make sure the new issue of Ad Astra is ready and available. So everybody at ISDC will be the first to receive the second issue of the year. It'll be done just the week before ISDC, and long before it gets mailed out to everybody. It will be handed out to everybody who's at the conference.
That's a nice treat. Yes.
Yes.
We've been
It's
doing
like a
that.
preview edition. It's like a
Yes.
preview edition.
Great, great. Let's see. I see Carl has a few other questions in there. He said, will there be any topics related to MOXIE, you know, the CO2 to O2 on Mars?
So we had the PI from that at one of the ISDCs, Mike
Oh.
Hecht, and I've had him on my podcast a few times. But as far as I know, he's not coming this year because he is on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Moxie's pretty much wrapped up. The problem with Moxie for the rover unit, it's on Perseverance, is when you're going to use Moxie, you kind of have to shut down everything else for a few hours, let it charge up, and then once it does its thing, it's pretty much like tapped out the batteries for another 24 hours. So it's a big drain and a big commitment of resources. So I think they've reached pretty much reached the end of that project, but it succeeded, which is important.
Right. Very good. I think we answered this question from Holger. Is the nonprofit art section still planned? He's a science art poster and a space art print that he'd like to display. So
Yeah, I think Aggie answered that.
yeah, Aggie answered that. So
Mhm.
yeah. I see Carl. Carl, I don't know whether you is it IA or did you mean AI, Carl? About
He meant AI.
yeah, AI and is a future theme probably. That's something we'll have to talk about with next year's chair, right?
Well,
See-
but
seeing here,
interestingly enough, the issue of Ad Astra that's going to be in their bags is AI themed. So we
Oh,
have
wow.
2, maybe 3 articles coming in that issue about AI, both as it pertains to astronomy, to control of robotic spacecraft, to the effect it's going to have on human spaceflight and in settlements. So that we got 2 big. If you know John Cross, he doesn't write short articles. He likes to do deep dives, and he did a deep dive on this one. And then Jordan Strickler also wrote a long piece on it.
see here, I was all excited when I saw it, thinking that we were going to talk about Iowa.
You were wrong.
You know, corn and cows, we kind of done it. There's also a question about astrophysics. I don't know. You know, we do have some speakers on astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology from time to time. I don't know how many there are this year, Aggie. Do you have any idea if we've
No, I don't know
touched on that
offhand.
one?
No.
We'll have to look into that.
Let's see, going through the questions. Oh, I see a question to me about 1982. About the 1982 was Heinlein presented there. I honestly can't remember on that one. Was he the guest of honor? I focus in. I actually just did a talk last week, and I highlighted 3 of the individuals that I met during the first ISDC. One was Brian O'Leary, who was an astronaut. He was an astronomer who became an astronaut and left the program. He just didn't like flying. And he wrote a book called The Making of an Ex-Astronaut. And I was able to actually sit at the lunch table with him and just talk to him. So that was very interesting. Also in attendance was Ben Bova, who at the time I believe was the president of NSI, National Space Institute.
Right.
But great science fiction writer who went to my university, Temple University. So it was great to meet him. And then also Hans Mark, who was at one point Secretary of the Air Force and the Deputy NASA Administrator. And here I was 23 years old, and I'm talking to Hans Mark like I'm important. And it was just so exciting to be able to talk to the Deputy NASA Administrator. So again, that just gives you an idea of what goes on here
And
at the ISDCs.
Yeah, that's what makes it so exciting, because over the years, if you look at all of the different participants and all of the people that you just got to sit down, and I get excited with a lot of the people I get to meet being involved in this. I also wanted to mention, yes, Robert Heinlein was at several ISDCs.
He was at
Art Dula.
1982's as the fan guest of honor, and that
Oh,
was
he
the
was
first
there. Then it was
ISDC.
okay.
Yes, and he
That
was
was the
at
very
others
first
too.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's something I wanted to mention is we are getting original Heinlein material for the auction. Thanks to Art Dula, he was able to pull some of his original books that he has some signatures in, that he has notes in, and we are putting them up for auction. And we've got some of his original library where he got his ideas for some of his books. Art happened to have a number of these things in his collection. He is happy to donate them to people who would really like to have these as part of their collections. So they are going to be part of the auction.
Oh, wow. Great.
So
And
we've got a lot of
and,
really interesting pieces that are, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't shared this with about Eggy yet, but I usually have tables with a number of real space stuff for sale, but this year I have a bunch of sci-fi stuff. So one of the things I'll be donating for the auction is a full-size movie poster for Star Trek Generations. It's a really cool poster, shows the Star Trek kind of the emblem, big on it with the Enterprise, shooting inside of it towards it, and it's signed by 3 cast members, LeVar Burton, Brent Spiner, and Jonathan Frakes. So
That is always so exciting
that,
to have those things and have
yeah,
them
that will
signed.
be in the auction as well.
So we have a
Great.
question from Madhu Thangavelu. Says, hope folks note the shuttle Endeavour is being erected vertical at the California Science Center. Hope a tour is planned. Madhu, we tried. I talked to the director of exhibits and the people that are in charge of putting that the new. So for people that don't know, the shuttle Endeavour is here in Los Angeles. It's been displayed in horizontal mode for years, and basically what's a big metal shed. The plan was always to move it to a vertical launch configuration with an external tank and solids and a big vertical kind of Frank Gehry looking building. So they're doing that now. It will not be available to us, and we don't have a tour plan for that. We did ask, and they said that they were sorry they can't. There is a slight chance that we may be able to see the one and only wooden space shuttle at the Columbia Memorial Space Center, which was built basically built by North American Rockwell as kind of a sell it to Congress vehicle, but it's full size. It's 1-to-1 scale. It just happens to be made out of plywood and pine. But we also don't know the status at this point, so I can't answer that question.
Rod, do you know if we
Right.
took a ride out to the California Science Center, whether you could get some pictures? I mean, it's obviously not enclosed yet, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. And I don't know if they have big, tall fences up with that green stuff on it so you can't see or not. So that's a good question, and I'll ask.
Okay.
One of us will have to run by there. One of us should go by there, actually.
Yeah.
We've been talking to them and the California, the other, we've been talking to a
Columbia
few different
Memorial.
people about setting up, memorials, about setting up a 1-day kind of trek going from one museum to another, one center to another. So that's what we may end up doing on Wednesday, but it's going to be different than when we went to the California Science Center before, and you could actually walk underneath, and that we can't do right now. So we're looking into what we can do, and hopefully having something put together so that the students primarily like to do that and have them go out there and tour it a little bit. So we're seeing how much we can do and what we can do on that
I'd like
Wednesday.
to add
think
something
Anita
on
has
that
something,
plywood.
yeah.
That plywood space shuttle mock-up.
You must know it, Anita.
I
Oh, she
do
knows
know
it
it
intimately.
very well. I used to do Speakers Bureau presentations in the DEI room, the Design
Oh,
Engineering
is that the
Inspection
one you're
room.
talking about? The one that was in the DEI room?
Yes, it's
Fabulous.
the DEI
Okay.
room mock-up.
Yes.
If you look closely, you can see a few little differences. That was there in 1974, and I understand it was used in 1973 for early fit checks of payloads in the payload bay.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that when I worked there at Rockwell. Yes.
Just
But
one
everybody,
quick
one
thing.
last thing, Rod. If you people do
All right.
go to the California Science Center, it's not space related, but what's on display at the California Science Center is the Northrop F-20 Tiger Shark, a privately funded fighter plane that I helped design. So that's on display at the California Science Center. So
Well, and a couple of caveats about the two museums we were talking about. So
Yep.
the California Science Center a few years ago closed the Aerospace Museum in preparation for the switchover of the display of the Endeavour. So the aerospace exhibits are pretty limited. They've been moved to the main building. So they've got an Apollo capsule. I think it's Apollo 14. They've got a Gemini capsule. They've got a 1-to-1 engineering mock-up of the Viking lander, Viking 1, and a number of other things, but it's not the full display they had. Also, as pertaining to Griffith, I worked up there for 10 years, and I still have my keys somewhere, but I'm not allowed to use them anymore. But if you try to go up on your own, just be aware if you go to the top of the mountain, parking is $10 per hour, not $10 per day, $10 per hour. So best to, if you're going to do it, to see if we can arrange a tour bus and do it as a group.
sounds
Well,
good.
and that's what we would be doing. Just to mention,
Yeah.
that's what we would be doing on the Wednesday, is having 2 tour buses. One that would go up to Griffith Observatory for several hours, and then one that would go off to the museums for several hours.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to work out right now, and price points on that and things like that.
Great.
Somebody's asking, when will the offsite trips leave? Likelihood is at 10 in the morning. and come back at, usually by 3 or 4 so that the students can do what they need to do and we can work into our evening reception, because there will be a reception Wednesday evening, a joint reception with Space Tourism's group for everybody. Everybody's welcome to it.
Yeah,
Are
that
there
But
any-
that was Bill
Hey, Rod?
Byram's question. What?
Are there any scheduled launches from Vandenberg during ISDC?
Hold on.
Well,
they've been doing
Answer
it
is
more and more
not
often.
clear.
I kind of
I'd have
thought
to
maybe
look
you
it
would have
up.
looked into this since you live there.
I'm not the chair of the conference, my friend.
Probably too early.
We don't see him much.
You know, on a
Yeah, it is too early. They
Yeah.
occasionally will list them like a month out for SpaceX. I just want to mention to Bill that question about the Wednesday trips. I just came back from, now admittedly this was Eclipse Mania, but I just came back from Texas for the eclipse, and it was like the last flight out of Saigon. It was a freaking nightmare and a ton of weather cancellations. So although this is a little later toward the summer, weather in LA will probably be stable, but depending on where you're leaving from, if you really want to make those trips, I suggest traveling Tuesday, because getting through LAX and out in a timely fashion, not a great
Yeah,
airport
even
for that.
catching that shuttle and getting to the hotel, you're walking
Yeah.
through crowds. LAX is a very crowded airport.
Yeah. So
At the
Bill,
best
you're
of
stuck
times.
for an extra night. You'll have to come drinking with us.
Yeah.
It's
Soda
worth
pop.
it. It's worth it just for that.
Non-alcoholic soda pop. Yeah, there we go.
We're just after the 10 o'clock Eastern time in the Eastern time zone. I want to just try to get a few more questions in. And Aggie, don't forget to put your email
did.
into the
I'll put it in
contact.
again.
I did, but I'll do it again.
Okay, good.
I'll do
That's good. There were a couple questions there about how we're going to inspire the next generation. I know we're hoping to get some SED students there, students for exploration and development of space. Anyone want to address that? What specifically might be available for students and those interested in pursuing careers in space?
Yeah. I can address that. We have got a complete track for students. There's lots of activities. There's student debates. There's speakers that are going to be speaking specifically to the students. There's a lot of different things that will be going on, because we'd really like them to be busy. They're certainly welcome to come to the adult tracks as well, to all the sessions, but we specifically put something together so that they have something every single day that keeps them busy, that keeps them very involved. And a lot of it is meant to be very motivational, inspiring. They're inspiring talks and inspiring conversations that they can have. And SEDS is certainly one of the groups that we hope to have there and have, activities going on for college students, as well as the high school students that we have attending in large numbers, particularly from Eastern Europe and India. If anybody has not been there before, they've probably not witnessed this, but we have hundreds of students who come in from Eastern Europe and India. And thank you for correcting my spelling, Rod.
Actually, it just went to the host and to the hosted panelists, so I'm trying
Oh,
to
okay.
resend it to everybody
Okay.
else. Yeah. Thank you, Fred.
Yep, and just to add what Aggie was saying, I'm organizing what's called a speed mentoring session. This is with the university students. We did this for the first time last year, and basically how it works is we have an engineer or scientist, a space professional who is at a table. And several tables are set up, so there's a different one at each table. And then several students sit with that individual and are able to hear their story, ask questions, and then we rotate. Then the students will move to another table and talk to another space professional. And it went really well last time. I'm trying to put a little bit more effort into it this year. And so if anyone is out there who is planning to be at the ISDC, and you are a space professional, whether current or retired, we would love to have you as part of this. Just drop me an email as well, and we can get you into the speed mentoring. The speed mentoring session is going to occur on the Friday, so that's the 24th of May, and it'll be before the lunch session, so it'll be somewhere around 10 to 12. On the Friday. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to have you as part of this. It was a lot of fun last year, and I can guarantee you that, and we heard from the students, they really enjoyed it because they got different perspectives from different people, and they were free to ask any question. So please consider it if you're going to be at the ISDC, and I really hope you are going to be at the ISDC.
So, Bert, just before we wrap this up,
Yes.
we've got the same question from two people, from Raymond Bird and Bill Byram, asking about this is an Aggie question: when the Wednesday events will be listed on the website, and will they be listed on the website?
Yes, I just saw that question. I can tell you we will have something going on. They'll be listed as soon as we get complete confirmation and schedule things. I've talked to bus companies already. We have to determine the price because it has to cover the price of admission, if there is a price to admission, and the price of the bus going there, and make sure we're not subsidizing it, which has happened in the past. So once we work those details out, I'd say within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, we should have it up there. And most of the students haven't registered yet. And as I said, the predominant group on these tours tends to be the students. And they are just starting to register now because of finding out they won competitions and things like that. So I will get it up as quickly as we can, as soon as I have the answers.
Great.
And Bert, let's make sure that we get that mentoring in the guide as well, the conference guide brochure. The timing of it, so everybody knows that at the
Yes,
conference.
I've talked to Mike about that already, so we're
Okay, good.
definitely going to have that. And I see Madhu is talking about getting them to the USC Astro department. Absolutely. So let me see. We're getting close to the end of the session. I think I'm looking through the chat to see if there are any questions that we missed there. And it looks like we've got most of them. Let's see, and let me look through the Q&A and see if anything new has come in. Oh, another question from Carl. Any politicians going to be there at this point?
Politicians, at this
Yeah.
point, not that I know of. Rod,
Okay.
do you know of any?
Well, Jose Hernandez ran for Congress, as I recall, but he did not get the seat.
Right.
And other than that, I don't think so.
Okay. That's it's interesting question. I know
Most,
we've
pe-
had.
most
Yeah, we
people
asked
ask
Mayor.
us that hope that politicians won't come.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting development.
We
but-
do ask the mayor from time to time to come, and we have had the mayor of LA there, but I don't think we did it this time. So I don't.
Right. Okay. Let me see. Anything else that we missed in the questions that were submitted? Oh, about here's one that maybe Tony could take. How are private companies contributing to the future of space exploration? And are there any notable presentations or exhibits from these companies?
Well, that's a pretty big and broad question.
Yes,
I
it is.
think what we're finding is, like for example, I brought a lot of astronauts and a lot of space related people to here at Iowa, right? While we have a couple of companies like Rockwell Collins and others here in Iowa they're big, producers of technologies for the space program. We're not known as a space state, so to speak. But I've managed to get companies excited about bringing these people in to inspire others. So I think the biggest way to get non-space companies engaged in sponsoring space-related activity is just in the sheer fact that you sell them on the fact that what they're investing in is the opportunity to inspire young minds and to become more imaginative, more creative, more innovative, and that they can almost all get around. So from a standpoint of going forward from the NSS perspective, that's one of the things I've been working on is trying to get more company support to the NSS from that perspective. That maybe you're not providing a service or a good that would help the space program per se. You can definitely help inspire people to higher levels of imagination, creativity, and innovation, which that they can get their arms around.
Was it a new space or non-space? I thought he was saying new space companies. Maybe I misheard that.
Didn't say new space, just
Oh, okay.
just
Okay.
private companies. Yeah.
Again, I have found, Bert, that companies can definitely get on board with anything that inspires young minds. And if we want those young minds to be inspired towards space, that's what we're trying to do. But I think they can support that. Whether they're space focused or not, it's irrelevant. I've had bank support what we're doing. I've had sandwich shop chains support this only because they can get their arms around that concept. And I think what we need to be doing as an assess, you know, as we proceed forward down the road, is we need to get companies to help support the, you know, the efforts to inspire young minds.
Yes, yes, we definitely do. And we will have a robot there, by the way. Just
Oh.
one more little note before we end this. And I hope everybody who's on this call will come to ISDC. It's wonderful. It's a great experience. It's a great chance to spend time with others who have the same interests and likes, and meet exciting people and hear great talks. And it's really a lot of fun. And I got to say, after spending 4 days here in Colorado Springs, it's much more personable, you know, it's one-on-one, it's touching, it's conversational. This event here was great, but very, very different from what we do at ISDC. And ISDC is a really, really enjoyable conference. So I hope you will all join us.
You see that question that just came in, Aggie?
Yeah, I've noticed my name on the conference schedule, but haven't received an email about presenting. You should be expecting a lot of the track chairs are just getting caught up right now. I know many of them have let their speakers know, but there's a few that have not yet. So you should be getting a notice from the track chair telling you you will be speaking. If you don't hear from them, let me know. As I said, my phone number, my email was in there, and I will find out.
Very good.
I'm reading what else is
Yeah,
there. I think that's it.
I think that's it. I think we've covered
I think
everything.
that's it. Yep.
Fabulous.
Thank you, everybody.
No, it's very nice, a nice conversation with you all, and really do appreciate taking the time. I know you're busy getting everything ready, but it's looking like going to be another great ISDC. So I just want to thank Aggie, Rod, and Tony for all the hard work they're doing and for sharing all their insights tonight. And also thanking our CEO, Anita Gale, for joining us. And of course, my colleague, Fred Becker. And I know he's not on now, but Larry, my other colleague, NSS colleague, Larry Ahern, who helps get these town halls and space forums organized. So let me close out, everybody. I'll just share my screen one last time before we close out for this session. And you know what to expect with this last slide that I'll share. It's really just about thanking you for attending. And we do hope, as Aggie said, to see you all in Los Angeles Memorial Day weekend. It will be a lot of fun. So we appreciate it. We hope to see you in 2 weeks for the next Space Forum. You'll be getting an announcement about that. So for those of you in these time zones, have a great evening. If you're in tomorrow's time zone, have a great day. And of course, everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you,
Thank you.
Anita.